What's up, everybody? This is your guy Frost, and I'm back with more HD content. It's been a minute, but I'm back. Wiltshire season 145. We are on day number 9. First week is in the books, and I want to just sort of recap what I've done this season so far, and then I want to get into preparation for a difficult HD day. This is always one of the tough times of the season. Everybody's in transition. The mercenaries people had yesterday could look completely different today, whether it is the allocations, whether it is the composition, whether mercenaries are from a completely different buy level. You never really know what you're going to get. And so, um, if possible, I know that life gets in the way sometimes. It's really important on days like this to prepare, prepare, and prepare. And so last season, I did a video called Planning Precedes Performance, where I put together a target list, how much they're worth, summarized their setup, and talked about attack sequence. This is very similar to that. I kind of just want to take it a step further and just touch on the considerations columns that I've put in here. And the considerations column is important because it guides our entire strategy, really. Because the whole point of this game is to get as many nobility points as possible. In order to do so, you need to be able to beat the most amount of people and capture the um, optimal amount of nobility points. And you hear a guy like Chicken Eater 3, who's won many seasons, always talk about getting the maximum amount of value for your list um, each day. So, what I've done here is put together a quick sheet of information that came from my Alliance spies. Shout out to the ones who are up early doing that for me and the rest of us. And I've put together 11 targets, 9 daily attacks I have, but I've added a couple of extra options in case there's just somebody I can't beat. So before I get into that, I'll sort of again just talk about my first week playing. So obviously I quit Wilt 144 due to the merchant exploit, and that's been explained, and I'm not going to rehash that, but I'm very happy with the changes that have been made, and so I thought I would give Wilt 145 a shot. Um, I was playing York while I was waiting for Wilt to reset, and sort of it's funny. It's a different mindset because on York the numbers are so big. My setup is really sort of elaborate and multifaceted, and then to come back and play Wilt, it was just such a simple setup, right? You go from, I think I had like 1700, um, 1700 damage on a bow, for example, on York. Like you can, I'll pull up my York setup right now, but it's crazy, right? Like you have mercs like this, 1700 defense and 1500 defense with 500 agility, and gladiators attacking rogues with 1600 damage, and my bowman's got yeah almost 1800 damage, right? So you go from that to here's your brave and here's your page. It was very difficult, and so I actually lost 2 attacks in my first week, both on the same day. I was rushing to get things done before an alliance battle, and it didn't go so well. So anyway, Brave page. Think I'm done with that start. It's just really clunky and weird. It's not right. There's a better way to do it, and we'll talk about that next season. But I managed to recover over the last couple of days. I've been able to get near max value, and I think I'm back in the game now. I just have to be really, really tight. In order to be really, really tight, I have to prepare. So when I spied everybody this morning or looked at the spies, I noticed that there was a lot of jumps and some pretty intimidating mercenaries out there. So on the left side of the screen, you're going to see my setup. I'm just pulling it up now in summary view. And I'm going to compare what I have to what I see over here um, in my spies. And that's going to help guide my strategy. That's going to help guide the attack sequence, which I discussed in that other video. That's going to help me determine how I allocate to my mercenaries at each point, because I need to make sure that I have the attributes required to defeat my targets in as safe of a comfortable way as possible, with as much, hopefully, mercenary survival, so that I can continue to allocate more points, so that I can continue to get stronger. So I'm running a very quirky sort of setup. It's all swords based units. I've got a duelist, so that is the swordsman, the new melee option that was worked on by Donut and tested by Chicken Eater 3 and myself, and implemented, of course, by Shiny. And so, just so to recap, the identity of this mercenary is that it has extremely high defense and HP, so it can tank hits, but it also carries low agility. And I have a Cavalier here with a high level. So, I've got a good amount of damage here, an all right amount of accuracy. I think we'll compare that to what I'm seeing out there in the spies, and that'll maybe determine if it is an all right level. I've got a level 7 Duke and a level 6 Duke. So I'm thinking by the end of the day today, my goal is to get the level 13 sword on my Cavalier and two level 9 swords on my Dukes. So in order to get there, I need to start with the alliance battle. I've pulled these targets up, and we'll go through them and you'll see why. But um, I'm not comfortable to going through this list right now without the alliance battle. It can really help give you a boost, and um, you know somebody I can't kill right now becomes much more beatable when I have access to stronger armor or allocation points. So I'm just going to go through these targets one by one and explain, what I see when I spy them, and considerations that I need to take when I attack them later. So I'm going to go in order of placement from last reset, starting with Renegade Monk. Renegade Monk has two Knifemen, a Dungeon Guard, and a Defensive Bowman. In order to beat that setup, I need to backdoor him by killing his defensive bow and doing it faster than his Knifeman Dungeon Guard can take out my duelist over here. So the considerations columns, I've put down the stats. So his bowman's got 153 defense, 55 agility, and his knifeman packs a real heavy punch, 250 damage and 84 accuracy. This already is problematic, right? You can look over here and see my defender. He's got this easily covered. 250 far exceeds 210, and he's got almost double the accuracy that my agility has on my sword. So if I were to launch this battle right now, his knifeman's going to critical hit my duelist, and it's game over. My mounted would easily fall, and I would die. So I know right now, as of this very moment, I cannot attack him. It is absolutely a no-go zone, but maybe later. And again, like I said, if I can attack easier targets and build up to him at the end, I might have the requisite defense, HP to absorb critical hits, and my mounted might be strong enough to get through his bowman in time. Lancelot is running sort of like an inverse of what Renegade Monk's doing. So he's got two Whipmen, a knife, and a death bow. Again, in order to beat him, I need to backdoor him by killing his defensive bowman. Doing that before his whips and knife can take out my duelist. So again, in the considerations, he's got an arbalist with 162 defense and 54 agility, and he got two whips with 200 damage and 68 accuracy. So when I look at Lance versus Renegade Monk for my setup, Lancelot's a much easier target because he's got 200 damage versus 251. He's got 68 accuracy instead of 84 accuracy. And not to mention that swordsmen are 15% more effective against whips, and whipmen are 15% less effective against swords. So if I were to extrapolate that, you'd be looking at the defense of 210 versus a whip becomes 240. And his 200 damage becomes 170. So that gap actually goes from being, what was it here, 210, so 10 to like 70 when you factor in the 15%. It's a huge, huge difference. And I think it's really, really great that we increased it from 12 to 15% because that impact is so much more pronounced, I find, this season. So this is already a safer target. Not saying it's completely safe because the bowmen have an advantage over mounted as well in a similar manner, right? So if we were to do the math really quickly here, 162 plus 15%. So that bow effectively versus my mounted is going to have 186 defense and it's gonna have 62 agility. So I need to make sure that my um, attackers at least have that covered off. And I find that for what, even with it covered off, that defensive bowmen are not easy to kill. Um, they're really a pain in the ass, to be honest. So it's going to be really important to make sure that I don't attack him until I've at least got this accuracy easily covered. And you could say maybe I do right now, but also you have to consider that the 90 accuracy I have on that Duke really is 76. So it is covered, but I might want it covered a little bit more. Perhaps there are easier targets out there. So the third person on this list is Scotty Dog. He's got a two bow triangle. And so what that means is, and I'll show you specifically with him, he's got a Severer as his frontline melee, and he's got a compound bowman, which is extremely strong with 205 damage, and accuracy is not great, but it's protected, so it's gonna get some shots off, and he's got it protected on the other side by a scout with 193 defense and 81 agility. So I want to make sure when I attack Scotty that my dukes have this damage and this accuracy to cover the defense and agility of this mercenary. And the reason why I want to do that again is because that's my only win con. My duelist is not going to kill everybody. It's not going to be able to solo all of these mercenaries. So um, I've written down the mount defense so that as I'm playing and I'm allocating, I'm ensuring that I meet that target at least. Um, and then I also have another separate note here for melee counter damage. And the reason why I put that in there is because um, my duelist is still not at like a good level of speed. Like it's still got 5 speed. It's going to get some attacks off. And with 26 accuracy, it's going to get countered. So I need to make sure that my defense can absorb that counter. And right now, with 151 counter damage and 210 defense, that is not a good ratio for me. This is very dangerous. Ideally, I'd want actually closer to like probably 300 defense to absorb counter damage of 150. I look at it as a 2-to-1 ratio. Um, and then as that scales, it kind of gives me an idea of how much time I need to break through his back door. Because once my mounted gets shots at his severer, my mounted can take it down. But I have to get there first, right? So that's not somebody I would attack right away. The fourth person on this list, New Stone, we've got an offensive swordsman, a knifeman, a whip, and a defensive bowman. So his defensive bowman has only 145 defense, and it's got a fair level of agility, 54. And this one is probably going to be one of the first people I attack because it does have low defense, and I just need to get the alliance battle done. Probably add some accuracy to my dukes, and I should be able to take him out no problem. Jib has a knife and a defensive bowman. I don't know how you're doing it, man. You're running really, really lean, and you're in fifth place. You're looking great. Did a fantastic job last season. I'm looking forward to seeing what you've got this time around. But he is sort of the flip side of New Stone, where his um, bow defense is 150, but his agility is low. I feel much more comfortable attacking the lower agility because I'm going to land hits on him. So Jib might be one of the first people I look to attack. And if you notice as well, just sort of see here. So Renegade Monk's got 153. Lancelot's got 162. Jib's got 156. You'll find as seasons evolve and as seasons progress that there are going to be certain trends. There are going to be certain like damage levels that people are at and accuracy levels. And it's always good to like understand that and compare it to what you have. So right now, if I took my best offensive mounted, which is this Cavalier, I guess, maybe not for long, but if I took this Cavalier, for example, and I subtracted the 15%, so 186 times that. So effectively, against these bows, I have 158 damage versus defense of 162, 145, 146, and 153. Now, those also get plus 15%. So that's also important to consider. So in order to kill these bows, I want 170 damage ideally, uh, which is why I'm waiting for the alliance battle so that I can try and spike my damage and work through these targets one at a time and continue to build and build and build and build and build. And maybe I can try attacking Renegade Monk at the end once I'm at my absolute strongest and I've spiked my defense and I've spiked my damage and accuracy on my mercenaries. So continuing on, Bagel has a triangle, right? So that is a defensive melee, defensive mounted, and a bowman. But he's also got a random rebel in there, and I think that's just meant to check uh, the amount of rogues that we have. So again, I can only beat him by backdooring, no melee crit, because that's my losing condition, right? If my melee gets critted with a whopping 43 agility, then I'm pretty much screwed. So the only noteworthy thing I have for Bagel is that the defensive mount has 133 defense and 76 agility. And because mounted don't have any special advantage over other mounted, this actually might be a really good first attack because I have the requisite accuracy to take this out. 76 agility. I've got 75 accuracy, but maybe more after an alliance battle, 90 and 90. So that's gonna land hits and backdoor bagel. They have a defensive swordsman as well, so I'm not at risk of being countered to death. Um, they'll kind of just have like a friendly standoff while I try and backdoor. So that's probably gonna be my first target, and that's how I've come to that conclusion. And the rest of the targets, I'm gonna lump, sorry, Spartan, Charity, and Charna together because they have like identical stats. So they also have a triangle setup, but they have an offensive mounted, which I think is actually really interesting and really cool because the offensive mounted can kind of serve as patrol, see if it can knock off um, other attacking mounted. So someone like me, when I look at these setups, my fear is that that offensive mounted of his or theirs will kill my best offensive mounted. And now I'm at a disadvantage in trying to backdoor this triangle with weaker mounted. So it's an interesting strategy that they've chosen to do. Um, Again, in this case, their mounted agility is not super intimidating, but this is 93 agility on their Amazons. So this is problematic. I marked it in red because I really need to make sure that my accuracy exceeds this agility. So I've got 90 right now, and mounted do have a 3% advantage. So I think I'm just short, right? So like 90 times 3%. I'm right there. So again, I probably want to add some accuracy. This is a common trend that's happening. In order to backdoor these archers, I'm going to need more accuracy. In order to take out these melees, I'm going to need more accuracy. So when my mercenary levels up, where am I going to allocate? Probably more accuracy. And so that's how spies can sort of impact and shape how you allocate because you're really just trying to beat these guys every day to get as many points as possible. And lastly, John Forge, Thomas Lasky, same sort of setup. Again, this is the multi gang. They've got triangles, but with strongmen this time and very weak mounted defense at the moment. But that will be very different and that will be very challenging, I'm sure, in the next couple of days as I approach by level 20. But the thing that makes them more appetizing targets is that their agility is lower. And the reason why their agility is lower is because they went with the strong man versus the Amazon. So again, the rogues are typically meant to be less defensively based, but more agile, whereas a strongman is more your classic defense with a bit of agility and a lot of HP. And then on the extreme, on the other side, you've got the swordsman. In my case here, it's the duelist with high defense, high HP, and very low agility. So um, it's a sort of a scale from like one, two, and three, from most defense to least, and most agility to least, and HP survivability, health, um, from the rogues not having as much to the swords having a lot. So I just wanted to kind of come up here and show you what I'm going to do. I think I'm still waiting for my alliance battle, but once that's done, I'll probably look to attack Bagel first. Um, I might look at Jib as a target I might decide that I want to hit the gladiator pit early so that I can like spike some extra accuracy. I have access to a level 9 weapon perhaps on my Duke, which would really change the game. And then I can kind of work into some of these targets. And um, that's sort of how I play HD on a day I'm really locked in. And this can be extrapolated to like a buy level 20 setup. Like if everybody had buy level 20 and I'm seeing that everyone's got, say, 500 damage on their bow, but my melee is behind. This helps again steer my allocations. It helps steer my resource allocations as well. And if your list is not like this happens to be a top 9 list, but if I had an attack range of say 10 to 25, you can take a list like that and try and add higher value targets and remove the lower value targets to refine your list so that you can eventually get to that point where you are getting the absolute maximum amount of value. So um, that's it for now. I might come back with my attacks. I might not. Depends on how long it takes for this alliance battle to happen. But I want to thank you for your time. And if you have any questions, again, as always, hit me up on Discord. Let me know if you found this video helpful, and I'll see you next time. Peace.